Good evening, everyone.
Hello, Greg. Hello, Greg.
Hey, Harold.
I'm here. Thank you.
Hey, Harold.
Hey, how's everyone doing?
Hey, welcome.
Thank you.
Everybody seems to be having some trouble getting in for some reason. I'm checking on the mayor now. Good evening, Harold.
I guess that worked. Thank you, Ron.
I don't know what's going on. I don't know why it's saying it's not started.
Yeah, well, I was pretty sure it was started, but oh well.
Ron, can you hear me?
Now we can hear you.
Thank you.
Okay, we are live and you can start whenever.
We're a little late, but the meeting can now come to order. This is the regular monthly meeting of the City Council of the City of Prospect, Kentucky. The date is October 19th, 2020. And the first order of business is to consider approval of the minutes of the regular council meeting of September 21. Those minutes were distributed to the members of the council. Are there any suggestions for corrections or additions?
I move they be accepted as submitted.
I second.
Moved and seconded. All say aye.
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 All opposed? The ayes have it. Next item on the agenda is the mayor's report. We are surrounded by developments or proposed developments. There was a meeting last Tuesday that many of you may be aware of by the lawyer for the proposed 48 apartment or condo, depending on who you believe, at the corner of River Road and Mayfair. Mimi Runyon was in on that, and she was very active and aggressive. I was there, but they couldn't hear me, so I didn't get to say anything that mattered. It looks to me like it'll probably sail through. They said that they were going to sell for the range of $250,000 to $300,000, which to me is a little surprising for a basically 2-bedroom apartment with no parking garage. But that's what they are talking about. So that's a 48-unit apartment complex, 2 buildings, 2 stories, the corner of River Road and Mayfair. And it's essentially right across River Road from the wooded part of the Prospect Cove property. So that's going on. Then just in the last couple of days, I got an email through Scott Reed concerning Prospect Cove. And that is headed to a meeting of the Louisville Housing Authority at which they propose to make Prospect Cove Section 8 instead of what was formerly called senior housing. Staying on the Prospect Cove matter for a minute, there is an oral argument in the court down at 7th and Jefferson at 1:30 on Thursday, and Grover will be there making oral argument on our motion for summary judgment and against theirs. I read all the briefs when they were filed. Ours is better, in my opinion. So the judge asked for oral argument. None of the parties did. So, of course, everybody said sure. So that's what's going on Thursday. If, as I believe, we will win that disputed summary judgments back and forth. Well, let me address first what would happen if we did not win. What they're asking for basically is for the court to send it back to the Metro Council to let them vote again. And that would save them going through the whole process with the planning commission and all that. If we win and they lose, then I expect that is what they will do, is start back over with what they went through back in 2016 and 2017. Meanwhile, up on the other side of the Marathon station, they now are calling, it has a name now, it's called the Viridian with a V, Viridian. And that's 160 apartment proposed development. And that from the very get-go has been Section 8 development. Now, what's going on up there? I was back and forth with John Clark today from Sutherland about the what they're going to have to do to try to get sewers to that thing. So that's sort of in development. Meanwhile, the folks who live right around there in some very nice, expensive houses have become consulting parties on the issue of historic properties that may be affected or will be affected by the development, which is a hurdle the developer has to clear because the project is going to be federally funded. And the folks up there have banded together and they have hired a consultant who is an expert in these things, as well as a lawyer recommended by Mimi Runyon. So they're putting some money into it and fighting it that way. So we'll see where that goes. That's probably enough for me right now. Any questions about any of that?
Yeah, John, I have a question. That Section 8 housing, from what I read in the papers, that is, that's part of the voucher program for the Russell neighborhood. And
Yes.
oh, yeah. Has there been at one point we felt there were maybe, I don't remember the number, it was around 50 that had not been relocated from Beecher Terrace.
That I don't know. It would
Was
not
there any-
surprise me if it's a small number, Frank, because that Beecher Terrace development was basically torn down some long time ago. And I would think that the residents who were not resettled in the rebuilt Beecher Terrace, which was rebuilt, the ones who weren't resettled there have to have lived somewhere, and I would think that they've been resettled elsewhere. So I don't know by the time these developments get to the bricks and mortar stage, how many Beecher Terrace people are going to be left looking for a place to live. I don't know, but it's got to be a decreasing number as we go along.
Is there any, maybe Chris could help here. Is there any way of finding out what the outstanding number of vouchers is at this point? I mean, that should be public record, shouldn't it? I mean,
Frank, I don't see Chris appearing on this screen.
he just walked in and he's sitting right by the DS.
Oh, good. Okay.
You were not allowed to carry it. Apparently, it just started working as we started meeting at about 7:05.
Your voice is not being
I guess you all can hear that. I can't.
Okay. Number one, if the public cannot get on WebEx, then you're not supposed to have any business conducted while the public cannot get on WebEx. I could not get on WebEx, and at 7:05, I just decided I would come on down because of that. So that's number one. So did somebody have a question? Okay. That's all I want to say. I think Sandra said that WebEx has been fixed now.
Well, I don't know if the WebEx has been fixed, but I think we got indications that people were able to get on at about 7:05.
Oh,
Okay, well, that's at 7:05 is about the time I just said, well, it's not going to work. and I
yeah.
just
Harold
went on.
got on about that time.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, that's what I got on too. Prior to 7:05, I could not get on.
And we started late because of that.
Okay, okay, great. We're legal.
We are streaming live on YouTube, so we're okay.
Next order of business on the agenda is the committee reports, and the first is the Parks Committee report. Linda?
Yes, thank you. I'm so glad to be here with you tonight because we haven't been able to do an actual live update for the Parks and Recreation Committee. We continue to meet virtually every month. The good news is our latest scout, Natalie Young, has completed her Eagle project, which was 3 picnic tables that have been installed in Harrods Creek Park. I sent the council a couple of pictures, one with the group of scouts that actually installed the picnic tables, and then another shot of the picnic tables themselves. I would like to mention that I had other photos of the scouts working, and when they were actually installing the picnic tables, they were all wearing masks. I think they took their masks off just to take that lovely picture of them all. But the scouts are being very careful to social distance and also wear masks when they are working together. We continue to work on taking care of invasive plant species in the parks. Ron has been great in tackling the Tree of Heaven. We are working on that, and we're also taking care to put a plan in place to come up with a calendar of events to take care of various invasive plant species and make sure we know how to take care of them and what time of the year is most important for us to take care of them. I know that Lee Tusi is on board, and he's going to talk a little bit about planting trees in Harrods Creek Park, but I was really happy to work with the Forestation Board and with Ron and come up with a plan for that, and I'll let Lee talk about that. The committee has worked with Harold Shue and others to create emergency evacuation signs that we will put on the red trail and the green trail. Those in Harrods Creek Park, those are the most, they are the trails that are furthest removed from the parking lot or from Montero Drive. And if someone is in danger on those trails, we decided that we really needed to have an evacuation point that someone could go to and call 911 and seek emergency care if needed. So I'm very happy that we've done that. The thing that I most wanted to talk about tonight is about Putney Pond, because I know there's been an interest in the council, and I think tonight is the second reading of the budget, but there has been an interest in putting money in the budget this year to look at options and ways we can manage Putney Pond. As has been discussed earlier, this is a pond that has been here for a long time. Over time, it's silting in, and we need to think about how do we manage this? Do we let it silt in and become a wetland? Do we want to do something to manage it, to keep it as an open pond? And we aren't quite sure what the best option is. So following some of the discussion in City Council, Ron and I have begun to meet with various professionals to see what our options really are. And you've got the written report, so hopefully you've read that. But Putney Pond is under a conservation easement, and the first step was to determine what are our options. Can we manage the pond? Can we dredge it? Do we let it go? What can we do under the conservation easement? And the good news is we do have a lot of latitude on what we can do with the pond. We do have to coordinate with the Kentucky Heritage Land Conservation Fund to get their approval for whatever action we take. They are responsible for managing the or approving the management of the land under the conservation easement. So we've been in consultation with them, and they are totally on board. We've also met with the executive director of the Kentucky Waterways Alliance, who was able to give us a lot of information. And we've also been meeting with MSD because they also have an interest in what happens, as this is part of the watershed. And everyone we've talked to has been very responsive, has given us a lot of good ideas. We just have to sort of sift through what our options are and what we need to do next. I said to someone, it's kind of like peeling an onion. You really need to go step by step and figure out what are our options, what's the next step, who do we need to talk to. We just need to make sure that we have all the information needed to determine the best decisions that we can make for managing the property. So it's still in the investigation stage, and we will keep you posted.
Thank you. I want to back up to where you were talking about the scouts.
Yes.
I had an email from Lynn Granger today telling me that one of them that made Eagle, and indeed all of them, they couldn't come to the meeting tonight to be recognized. And apparently they're going to college and they're not going to be back for months. So I asked Lynn to send me more information about each of them. And I intend to write a letter on behalf of the city, thanking them and inviting them to come to the council meeting when they can, so they can be publicly thanked. So I just wanted to add that. Linda, are you finished with your report?
I think I am.
Are there any questions for Linda?
I would like to. I'm
Go ahead,
sorry.
Greg.
Thank you, Frank. Mayor, I'd just like to make a couple of comments. Linda, thank you for that excellent report. It's fascinating to hear that you all are still meeting every month, and I love the fact that we have an Eagle Scout, a young woman who has created 3 new tables for us, and I know that will be great enjoyment for our citizens. I like the pictures. I love your idea about the emergency evacuation and other safety for our citizens. And so it's just really a great report. On the Putney Pond, I love the Putney Pond, and I too have wondered what to do with it. And I'm not qualified to know what to do it, but it sounds like you have a plethora of talent that you have already spoken with, and that might be able to give us some free advice. So I was just wanting to say that if Linda thinks this as well, I concede to her on what her thoughts might be, but perhaps it'd be best to continue pursuing the free advice that we can get from all of these sources, and then at some point in time determine if we want to spend or need to spend money. So that was my only comment there.
And thank you, Greg, because that was exactly my thought. I don't want to obligate the city to spend money if we can get advice for free. And I think we really need to know where we're going with this, because you know, we might be able to get some free advice, and we'll just take it where it needs to go.
Greg, are you finished?
Yes, go ahead, Frank. I'm sorry, and thank you.
Yeah, Linda, I just want to say how happy I am that you're moving forward as quickly as you are with this project. In discussions, on the budget discussions, though, there's no question that what to do with Putney Pond is central to this thing, but we can't overlook the surrounding area relative to a comprehensive park area centered around a pond, if that's the direction we're going to go.
Okay, I'm not sure I understand your question.
Pardon, I didn't understand.
I'm not sure what you're asking me to answer.
Oh, I don't think I'm asking you
Oh,
anything.
okay.
I'm just stating that discussions relative or during the budget process were about the overall park situation that the Putney Pond is central to. So it's not just dredging the pond, because it has some ancillary effects on how you want to deal with the other areas around it. That's all.
Okay, and I appreciate that. Obviously, I was not a party to the council discussions, but as I was listening to the council deliberations, the only thing I heard talk of was Putney Pond. So maybe I misunderstood something. I'm happy to talk about all of the park issues, but I didn't hear any discussion about anything other than what do we do with Putney Pond. So maybe I missed something, and if so, I'm sorry.
It was a catch-all that dealt with the Putney Pond and Parklands. I mean, it was shorthand for that, at least certainly in my mind, that there was going to be a little more comprehensive than digging a hole. But you've done an excellent job of getting started.
Thank you, and I would welcome any direction from the council on other issues that we should be exploring. This was the direction that I thought we were asked to take. So I'm happy to investigate anything else that we should consider.
Well, maybe the two of you could get together and have a conversation about the whole thing.
That would be fine with me.
Sure.
Why don't you and Frank have a conversation?
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right, next report then is the report of the Forestation Board. Is Lee available?
Yes, I'm on the phone here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. For some reason, this WebEx system I have doesn't connect very well through their normal system. I did distribute already a written report on the Forestation Board program, but I'd like to go over it. First, I wanted to say it's always great to work with Linda, and we've been working a little bit on the Harrods Creek Park area. And secondly, if people on the council haven't seen those new picnic tables, they're right next to the parking lot there in Harrods Creek Park, and they're very nice. The scouts should certainly be commended and have done a quality job, just like the other scout projects have been accomplished in the past. So from the Forestation Board side, we're planning to put 9 trees in residential areas. These are the same trees we've pretty much been talking about and have sent reports to council since last March. 5 of these are going to go in either at the Hunting Creek Drive exit or along Hunting Creek Drive. 3 are going to go on a very large median, which is on Montero, and 1 on a small median at the very end of Innsbruck. We've actually had 4 different residents over the past several months request trees for Hunting Creek Drive, for that Montero median, and for that Innsbruck median. Those trees are in order, and they'll be planted sometime mid to late November, which is a good time to put them in. On Harris Creek Park, we're working with Linda and then with Ron to find a good site there just as you leave the parking area and head towards the Orange Trail and the new launch. And there's plenty of area to plant trees there. My report said 4 swamp oaks. Andrew Henlon's been checking the pricing and whatnot, and we may be restricted to 3 at this time because they're running a little higher than we had in our original estimate. These swamp oaks can really tolerate a wide variety of conditions, including occasional flooding, which we might get down there. I've seen big carp flying around down in that area. So, and they can also withstand drought, which I've seen too. So they should be good selection. They're very long-lived. In fact, if you look up swamp oak in a tree guide, it might say 300 years, you know. So they should be providing a shade for a lot of walkers in the future. Next thing we're doing, we're trying to work with both Hunting Green and the breakers on helping them put in the best trees for their locations. The Hunting Green people sent us their landscape plan, which has specific trees and locations. We reviewed it. I say we, was mostly Andrew reviewed it. She made some recommendations on tree selection and how they should plant, and that's been sent to them. They're presently revising their whole scheme to have fewer but larger lots, so they may have to come up with a new plan in the future. We're not requiring them to do anything, but they've certainly got our best advice. Another ongoing issue, of course, is hazardous trees, particularly in the residential areas where they could fall on people or houses. We had identified 3 hazardous trees and some hazardous limbs, actually all in Fox Harbor. Those have all been taken care of by the homeowners without any real problem. There's also some ashes down off of 42, and the landowner there has probably not done it yet, but has contracted with Bob Ray to take care of that particular situation. I noted in my report that I'm going to be out of town for about 2 months, starting in mid-November, running through mid-January. And Linda Knox, who of course has been on the board for several years and is our very active and skilled secretary for the board, has agreed to take over the main responsibilities during that period. I will try to work with her if needed, but my computer capabilities will be considerably limited when I'm out. So it's very great that Linda will continue to take over. One of the main things we have to do certainly is file the Tree City application in December. I'm sure she can handle that very well.
Lee, will you be
Any
here
questions?
for August Fest?
Say that again, John.
I asked if you would be here during Arbor Fest.
Well,
Give away the
Arbor Fest, we canceled the Arbor Fest for the fall here because of COVID.
Okay,
We're planning to have one in the spring if the situation warrants it from a COVID threat.
yeah, I didn't know that because you're outdoors and you can wear masks, and I thought you might be going ahead with it. I did not know that.
Yeah. As we canceled that sometime back. I checked with, one of the requirements for the Tree City certification is that you have an event like Arbor Fest every year. And the forestation that I'm talking about, the State Forestry Division, says that Arbor Day Foundation has waived that requirement for this year because problems with COVID all over the country. We may still need a proclamation, and I'll find out about that. And if you need to make one, we'll draft it up for you.
Okay. Is that it?
That's
Lee?
it from my side.
Okay, any questions for Lee? Thank you, Lee.
Right, thanks all. Bye-bye.
The final committee reports would be the library and the history book.
In regard to the library, as I indicated at our last meeting, donations have continued to come in at a rate probably even beyond what they do in a normal year. And we have a meeting that will be held next week to try to plan a COVID sensitive book sale. Hopefully, because we've run out of storage space that we can hold between now and the end of the year. We'll let you know how that turns out. But there are other places that are having book sales, like Locust Grove, and people have been looking at the procedures they've been going through. And so we have information available to us for our decision-making process. In regard to the history book, I wish I could say something that's nice, but our history book, because all of what we do relates to contacting people, we're still seriously curtailed from anything that's helpful. Even some of the historical repositories throughout the state are closed through this, and only their online resources are available, and we explored those a very long time ago. So the history book is definitely suffering because of the pandemic. That's the end of my report.
Thank you. Jeff Sherrard, do you have a police report tonight?
Yes.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. The COVID has really slowed down the number of house checks that we've done. They're almost half of what they were a year ago. 1,258 for the month of September compared to 2,300 the year before. So everybody's staying home. They're not leaving town. Obviously, we would have expected that. This year, there will not be a fall version of the drug take-back program over at the Kroger's. They're still doing it in a few different places, but everybody's really scaled back. In fact, there's nobody in Jefferson County, with the exception of one sheriff's pickup location at an Elks Club. Nobody else is really doing it. Metro Police aren't doing it. I haven't even heard it advertised, and it was going to be this Saturday to begin with, but we're not going to participate in it this time around. We'll wait till April to do it. We've got our own pickup box anyway, so if anybody wants to drop stuff off, we'll still take them. We get a few every now and then, but even with COVID, that's really slowed down. Let's see, we had a handful of misdemeanor thefts, the usual thefts from unlocked cars, one from over in the Kroger's, a couple from driveways at homes. There were 3 reported felony cases for the month. one of which was a scam theft where someone called in purporting to be the U.S. Marshal, stating that the person at that residence was going to be arrested because they had a warrant and they needed to go to a location and purchase Bitcoin. And lo and behold, it still gets them. They bought $1,600 worth of Bitcoin and put it into an account. So, and of course, these are done from odd locations, from, you know, even from other countries. They're a jurisdictional nightmare. They're impossible to follow up on. We had a case that's reported as a burglary, although essentially what it was a garage that was left open at night, garage door left open. Crime of opportunity, somebody drives by, sees it open, goes into the garage. Fortunately for the homeowner, they only went into 2 unlocked cars, grabbed a little bit of loose coin out of it, less than $100, and then also grabbed a electric chainsaw on the way out the door that was on the shelf. Very fortunate. Let's see, with that one. And the third one was just actually from the job site over at the breaker. Someone took a towel saw out of a truck over there. So that was it for the 3 main reports. I didn't make it over there today, but today they were supposed to begin cutting in the power in all the utility lines on Sutherland Farm Road, the access road to where they're what they've been using as the maintenance road for the breakers. So for the time being, the only entrance for the construction vehicles in and out of the breakers will be going through Innisbrook and also using the access road there through the Sutherland on that little court. So I'm sure we're going to get a number of calls from residents saying that the builder's in violation because they're not using the construction road. Well, the construction road is closed because Fischel Company is cutting in all the utilities and stuff. They brought in the equipment on Friday, and they began a little bit of work on Friday where they've cut down that access gate at the entrance to the farm. That was all taken out on Friday. They were supposed to begin in earnest this morning. I don't know if the rain would have impeded that. I didn't personally go over there today. I was over there Friday. So,
Jeff, have you talked to him?
have I talked to Fischel?
Yeah.
Mike Thomas has talked to Fischel, and he also talked to the supervisor over there with Gillisan's group.
I'm just curious how long it's going to take before that road is open.
I know it'll be probably a couple of weeks because it's going to take them a while. Half the road was already cut out at the end of last week. You could only go about halfway down the access road, and the rest of it was cut up and it was all gravel. And that was as of like Wednesday or Thursday of last week. So, but the roads themselves are actually paved back in the breakers. So, and it's my understanding that the asphalt company is supposed to come in and do the cursory pave job on Eads Place and on Innisbrook, or I guess it's Sutherland Farm Road. Yeah, before it cuts back in. They're supposed to come in and do that, the cursory paving job where they cut some things in and out. They're supposed to come in and do that here within the next week or so. And then they got to get it under the gun because when it cut or becomes cold, then they close down all the asphalt plants. So, but we didn't get any calls, to my knowledge, we didn't get any calls today on them using the access road.
No, I didn't hear anything.
Yeah, but they should know. But Fischel, my gosh, they probably had 8 or 9 vehicles over there on Sutherland Farm Road on the main entrance right there before you go into the farm itself. So there's nothing we can do about that. I mean, they're moving on.
Chief, I was in Innisbrook Saturday knocking on doors, and one of the comments I got was they heard a rumor, this resident heard a rumor that the breakers was going to shut down Sutherland Farm Road into the breakers from Innisbrook into the breakers because they wanted it a closed community. And I told them I heard nothing along those lines. You concur with that?
The only thing I've heard is that it may be gated at some point with like electronic gates or whatever, like Bridgepoint. But nobody's ever confirmed that with me. I just heard that rumor myself, that it was just, it was going to be a gated community.
That has actually almost been getting back.
Yeah.
Well, if that's true, then it won't be a public road.
If that's the case, she has to pay for it, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Well, she has to pay for it initially, right? Until she,
Yeah,
until
yeah,
it's
but
completed and she turns it over.
Yeah.
But if it remains gated like that, then all the residents in their HOAs have to keep it up. Is that not correct? Okay.
Chief,
All right, I don't have anything else. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
this crow being tamed and it's aggressive to neighbors.
I have no earthly idea where that came from.
Okay.
I don't know whether Mike Lesh dealt with that in early September, but that's the first I saw that when I saw that today. I should have known you were going to ask about it. But no, I don't have a clue.
I didn't hear the question.
Oh, there's a notation on the report, on the one that Jill prepared, and it's on page 2 of the police report under the code enforcement. And there's a notation that under the code enforcement that a crow was being tamed and it was aggressive to neighbors.
Crow?
A crow, a bird.
Bird?
Yeah, a blackbird, a crow. It was being tamed and it was aggressive to neighbors. Well, apparently it wasn't too tame if it was aggressive to the neighbors.
Still in training.
I think it was being trained to be aggressive to the neighbors.
I'm not sure what ordinance that would come under. Aggressive crows.
Well, I guess I should go back.
Hey, Jeff, anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Then we can move along to new business. I, along with, I think, probably all of you, a couple of weeks ago, received Randy Swan's letter of resignation. Sally and I had a long conversation with Randy about that time. I'm sure I'm not the only one, but my heart really goes out to her. She's got her hands full, and I feel sorry for her. She's resigned, and I believe the correct procedure is for the council to accept the resignation. So does anyone want
Actually, the
to?
law doesn't require us specifically to accept it. What the law says is that it will be effective as at the date of the next regular or special meeting of the council.
Well, it would be effective tonight. Sandra, I believe I hear you, and my understanding sounds like yours that it would become effective tonight.
I agree.
But Sandra, I'm not clear whether the council needs to say they accept it or if they need to say anything.
Well, I would like personally to thank Randy Swan. She has been helpful to the city for many, many years, and she has been a terrific council member in terms of putting her own personal issues aside and working very hard for the city. Sometimes we get council members who work hard and sometimes we don't, but Randy is a model for what a good council member should do if they're going to be effective. And I would like to thank her, and I hope someday she'll be back and join us. If you'd like us to take a vote, I'm sure we'd be willing to.
I regrettably move that we accept her resignation. I echo Sandra's remarks because She's an impressive person. And she contributed an awful lot to the city.
Is there a second?
I second that. Unfortunately, I told her I was not going to accept it, but unfortunately, I guess we have to.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Now, my understanding, and Chris Gorman can correct me if he thinks I'm off base here, but it's my understanding that even as late in the season as it is, that the council has 30 days in which to appoint someone to succeed to the short remainder of Randy's term, and if they don't, then the governor gets to do it. So it doesn't have to be done tonight. Our next meeting is less than a month away on November 16th. So I just mentioned that for you all to be thinking about. You can do it tonight, or you can wait.
Mr. Mayor, thinking about it and trying to be fair to everybody, I'd like to propose that what we do is schedule a special meeting several days after the election with the thought that we would appoint the person who gets the highest number of votes in the election who is not currently on the city council. And looking at a calendar right now, a day that looks like we can't do it would be Monday, November 9th.
I think that's a great idea. So are you proposing you have a special meeting on the 9th?
Special meeting to appoint a replacement for Ms. Swan on Monday, November 9th.
At what hour?
If that's a motion, I would like to second that motion.
At what hour?
Since we don't have to meet at 7 o'clock, about 5 o'clock.
Yeah, I'm not going to attend, but that's
Is that
okay.
Can you come on that Friday?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that agreeable to everybody?
Well, in order to have, well, Frank is not available on that date. So what about Friday, the preceding Friday?
What day? What date?
That would be the 6th.
The 6th?
Yeah, would Friday the 6th.
Do we foresee the results possibly not being 100% in, though?
I'm sorry, it's hard to understand.
Do we foresee the results officially not being in, though, but 3 days after the election?
The official results usually take longer than that, but we should have enough of a clue that we wouldn't do something foolish.
It would.
And we could
Chris.
always, if we had to, we could reschedule the meeting.
When will the results be in? Do you know? Aren't they waiting 3 days or something for for all the mail-in ballots?
Yeah, but they're counting the ones that are going in now, they are counting, so it's only the final ones that are postmarked on the day of the election that have those additional days that are being counted. So we should have a pretty good idea.
Nothing trouble here.
What was the time that you suggested, please?
5 o'clock on Friday.
That's a little, my wife makes dinner at 5 o'clock on
How about 4 o'clock on Friday?
It'll only take a minute.
How about 2 o'clock on Friday?
4 o'clock on Friday.
Well,
I'm fine whenever.
work overtime. So Ron would have to work overtime. How's 2:30?
2:30?
2:30.
That's good.
Everybody okay with 2:30 on Friday?
Friday, November 6th.
All right. We will have a special meeting for that purpose. All right, next on the agenda, under new business, is a report on the Prospect Code Enforcement Board. Sandra?
What I'd like to do before I give the report on the Code Enforcement Board, I'd like to move the unfinished business second reading of the code enforcement ordinance, which is 601, 2020. I'd like to move that to a vote first, so that that's in place when we have our report.
All right, now one thing that I have discovered in the nominations I made under the existing Code Enforcement Board ordinance allows for 2 alternates. Accordingly, that's what I did. The way I read the amended Code Enforcement Board ordinance, it changes that to 1 alternate. So that would eliminate one of my nominations automatically. Just thought I'd point that out,
That's fine.
unless you decide to change that back in
No, we
this.
found in all honesty that there wasn't a need for 2.
Sandra, I'm having trouble hearing you.
I'm sorry, we found that there was not a need for 2 alternates, that in general, they need so infrequently that people show up for the meetings. And so 1 alternate seemed to be sufficient.
So be it. All right, so
I move that we go to a second reading of ordinance 601, 2020.
I'll second that.
it will, for the motion and the second, I am unsure whether we need a roll call vote to come to the reading of the thing or not.
We should do a roll call vote on an ordinance.
Well, this is, okay, I'll do it, but I'm not sure just to bring it to the floor. Frank?
You're talking about bringing it to floor for discussion? My motion was to vote on it, although I can certainly table that motion if somebody wants to have a discussion.
I'm not aware of that. Why don't we come right to a vote?
That's fine.
Frank, how do you vote?
Yes.
I think the next one I see is Don
Yes.
and Sandra
Yes.
and Harold
Yes.
and Greg Hulsman.
Yes.
It passes unanimously. Now, should we revert back to the report on the Code Enforcement Board?
Yes, and I'd like to have a brief, I'd like to tell you briefly what our findings were when we took a look at the Code Enforcement Board. Code enforcement boards are important because they have the legal power to enforce the city's laws that are called ordinances. Most of their powers are so significant, they're only reviewable by courts of law. What they decide does not come back through another body within our city. As most of you know, because Randy Swan and I have brought interim reports to you, we've been looking at the Code Enforcement Board in Prospect for several years. We were looking at all of the Prospect Commission's boards and committees because that hadn't either been done at all or it hadn't been done for many years. During the course of that review, we've been told by several people that there were potential problems in the way the existing Code Enforcement Board functioned to such an extent that their problems could present legal issues for the city. We found multiple issues with the membership of the board and its functions. The primary reason for most of the issues that we found was a complete lack of training. No matter what year members started on the board, they received no training in the board's functions, in the requirement for open meetings or open records, or in basic Robert's Rules of Order. A preponderance of the board members had not even read the ordinance which establishes the Prospect Code Enforcement Board, let alone the more than 20 ordinances that give the board power, even if one of those ordinances pertained to an issue that was before them. The amended ordinance which we've just passed lists those additional ordinances, and we hope it will serve as a future training tool. Kentucky statutes require that appointments be made by the mayor subject to the city council confirmation before an appointee can assume duties. Looking at the official listing of the Prospect Code Enforcement Board members for 2018 when we started, we researched each potential appointment and confirmation using the minutes that are available on the Prospect website. Rather than refer to anybody by name, I will list those appointees 1 through 7. Number 1 had been appointed and confirmed on June 20th, 2011, probably for a 3-year term, which would expire in 2014. There were no subsequent reappointments. Number 2 was appointed and confirmed December 12th, 2011, for a 3-year term which expired in 2014 and was then reappointed for an additional term in 2014, which expired in 2018. Numbers 3, 4, and 5 were appointed and confirmed January 9th, 2012 for 3-year terms which expired in 2015. Number 6 was appointed and confirmed in 2014 to a possible 3-year term, which expired in 2017. Number 7 was neither appointed nor confirmed. Number 7 also was not a resident of the city as required by Kentucky statutes and Prospect ordinance. Number 7 was not even a resident of the state of Kentucky. We assumed as we did this that people had 3-year appointments and confirmations, although the statute requires that all vacancies be filled for the remainder of an unexpired term. Since we were looking at a 2018 document, you can see that none of these individuals were legally functioning on the board. All of their terms had either expired or did not exist. The argument's been put forth that a member's term continues until they're replaced by another member. The statute itself clearly argues against that interpretation. It says a member may be reappointed subject to the approval of the legislative body. What does this matter, you ask? Because according to state law and spelled out in the Kentucky League of Cities City Officials Legal Handbook, Chapter 5, and I quote, "Actions taken by a person who has not been legally appointed can be voided by a court of law. If each unofficial member's actions can be voided, and none of these people in 2018 were legally on the board, you can clearly see the consequences." As I started by saying, code enforcement is critical to our ability to enforce city laws. We hope to go forward training our carefully appointed and confirmed new members so they can assist us in maintaining Prospect as a wonderful place to live. Thank you.
So where does that leave us going forward? In other words, you and I went back and forth in recent days, and I ended up last night nominating 7 people, which will now have to be reduced to 6 people because the new ordinance cuts it back from 2 alternates to 1. But I have nominated 6 people, and those nominations are before the council. What are you going to do about those?
John, I've communicated with you by email my thoughts on the nominations. And personally, I don't feel I have enough information to confirm anyone, although I know most of them. I have no problem personally. But the 2 things that I would like to understand completely is that there is geographic diversity. In other words, if if all 6 come from Sutherland, let's say, I don't feel well, I couldn't approve that situation. And I haven't seen what that is. That hasn't been presented to us.
I sent you an email responding to yours saying where all these people come from.
Well, that must have been late this afternoon because I didn't get it before I came here. So it's
Well,
kind of.
I can tell you where they come from if you'd like me to.
No, because I really think this is important enough that we don't make 11th hour decisions. The other thing that I mentioned to you was in the act of enlisting these people, I think it's very important that they understand the gravity of their potential role. And my experience, and I was liaison with them, and in the meetings it's hard to be complimentary of what I saw, and I think it's because they were given no adequate instruction or recognition even of what their role is. So appointing someone who is not familiar with the statute that governs their job and our ordinances which govern their job, which I think in the nominating process, I would look to you to not only secure candidates, but to make sure that they understood the gravity of what we're asking them to do. So
in the email I sent you that was too late for you to read, I said that once they are confirmed by the council, I plan to have a session with them and with Chris Gorman to go over what the responsibilities are and what the applicable law is.
well,
But you didn't see that.
I support that 100%, but I think that's that's after the fact. I think they should have more than a glimmer of what they're into, and just asking them to read the statute before that you're put on the floor for a nomination, I think is to be fair to them. Because if you get into a training session with you and Chris, whom I'm sure would do an excellent job once he has a board impaneled, you don't want any second guessing. You want them there understanding that there's going to be some obligations that they need to be aware of. So until I won't say happy with, but until I'm sure that these people have at least read the statute or aware of the Cliff Notes part of the statutes, then I couldn't confirm any of them, although I know most, and I like all of them.
One of the things we found when we went back and took a look was that in the distant past, generally speaking, when these people were being brought for confirmation, there was a draft of a municipal order from the mayor. And clearly the mayor had spoken to all of the individuals who were being recruited for the jobs.
Oh, well, is that the case here? Have you individually secured their commitment to it if they're confirmed?
Not with all of them, Frank. I have with the 3 who currently are members of the board. I've spoken with all 3 of them. I've spoken with John Clark, who's a new one on Sandra's list. And I've spoken, I believe, with Lynn Dowling and Al Binsfield.
Could we invite them to our next special meeting or regular meeting and make sure that they fully understand what they're getting into before we confirm it for 3 years or whatever the term may be?
Certainly. Yes, certainly.
And then you would present us with something that represents geographic diversity, and I have a concern about that just because of the way we're divided in the different developments, you know, with Bridgepoint, the landings, Fox Harbor, Hunting Creek, Innisbrook, Sutherland, and the condominiums that,
Well, I can tell you right now, Frank, we have nobody from Bridgepoint. We have nobody from.
No, and actually, we tried very hard. It just, over the years, in many, many different areas, we have tried to recruit people from Bridgepoint and been unsuccessful.
I understand. Bridgepoint doesn't seem to participate in much of anything. The only person I know from Bridgepoint who participates in city government is Sylvia Quay on the forestation board, and that's it. At one point, some years ago, Evan Comer from the Landings was on the Code Enforcement Board. In fact, he may have been the chairman, but he's not now. There's nobody from the Landings. I believe there are two people.
No, actually, we did recommend, there was somebody at one point in time. The Landings has been on there over quite a bit of time. And Fox Harbor has too. I mean, I think that we have not had representation ever from Innisbrook. And
Lynn Dowling is from Innisbrook.
exactly.
And she's one of the people I've nominated at your suggestion.
well,
I totally agree with.
Harold's commented, I think we should put this off until next month, and that you provide us with the different, with additional information, I think would be appropriate.
And Frank, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Fine with that.
Based on the email the mayor sent at 5:22 today, Frank, it looks like we got Sutherland, Innisbrook, Smithfield Green, Estates of Hunting Creek, and Fox Harbor, and another Sutherland as representation.
Yeah, it's everybody except the Landings and Bridgepoint.
I support the diversity 100%. Sometimes, whether that be just subdivisions or gender as well, or even age and whatever. But sometimes you just can't. Sometimes you have talented people that happen to both exist in whatever, Innisbrook or Sutherland or Hunting Creek, whatever. So I hope we don't get too bogged down in that, because at the end of the day, we do need top people doing this. And one of the things that I'd like to say with regard to Sandra's excellent report, Sandra, you made me think of something, and what I really want to get into here is, so that's important, selecting the people, but what I think I heard from Sandra's report is that we need to make sure that these people are properly trained and that their tenures are timely, and so that we don't have any voids or vacancies, and we keep that going. So, and John, I know you will do this, but just something to think about, whether or not for you to do this personally, or to delegate that to the chairperson of this group. But I see that as something, as a management role, and something critically important to make sure that not only do we get the right people, but that these people know how to do their jobs excellently, because they are, as Sandra said, the only way around this is to go to a court of law. There's no higher authority except the challenge of a court of law. So that says to me, this is an extremely important role, and they've got to be trained and continuously make sure the rotation is appropriate.
Actually,
we can't do it through the chairperson, because we won't have a chairperson until the board meets and elects one.
that's correct.
We have to do it a different way, and we will.
Basically, they're all equal. They all are equal, and then they pick their chair.
Correct.
And I agree with that. The other thing that we found that they needed to know is that all of us tend to be insular in where we live, and we think the rest of the city is like our corner of Prospect. And yet the issues that face, for the example, Innisbrook, and the issues that face older parts of Hunting Creek are not the same. And we would hope that the training would also provide them with an overview of the city and an overview of the kinds of things that have come before code enforcement in the past.
Sandra, does, for your knowledge, does KLC offer any type of training like this? This sounds like it would be perfect for them to have a specialist in that area. Do you know if they do?
No, Randy and I had been saving things to use for training for a long time, and there are many things that are components of it. For example, one of the things that we've asked them to do, as you know, is to be the initial people that hear requests for waivers or variances. And just one of the little nuggets that came out of something from KLC was that somebody coming to request a variance or a waiver should not have created the need for the waiver themselves. It should relate to the project or the land that's involved, which makes the project or the land unique, not because someone has created an issue that takes them outside the ordinance. Anyway, there's no overall comprehensive training. There are things that they have said from time to time that are helpful.
And just to confirm, so in this report, Sandra, you and Randy too, I guess, are making recommendations for the mayor to consider. The mayor then would appoint, but then the council confirms those appointments. Do I have that correct? And do we all agree with that?
Yeah, certainly. The mayor
Appoints.
I mean, I don't think there's any question regarding that.
But the person can't assume their duties until they've been confirmed.
That's also correct. So we're putting us off until November 16th.
Good.
Thank you.
And that brings us to unfinished business. And we've already had the second reading and passage of ordinance 601. We'll jump up to the second reading of ordinance 592. Does anyone want to make a motion to adopt that ordinance?
I'm so moved.
Second.
All right, we'll come to a roll call vote since it's an ordinance. Frank, how do you vote?
Yes.
Don Gibson,
Yes.
Sandra Leonard,
Yes.
Harold Shue,
Yes.
and Greg Hulsman.
Yes.
Passes unanimously, and that is now an adopted ordinance. Next ordinance for a second reading is ordinance 602, which has to do with the amendment and modification of the budget for the general fund for the fiscal year beginning July 2020. And to add funds to line items for professional services, for certain legal services, and engineering analyses of Putney Pond. Does anyone want to move for the adoption of that ordinance?
I move the adoption of that ordinance.
Is there a
Second.
second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Frank, how do you vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Don
Yes.
Gibson?
Yes.
Okay, Sandra?
Yes.
Greg Hulsman?
Mayor, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure we didn't have a discussion. I just want to make sure that, I like it, it looks good to me, but I just want to make sure that Chris has looked at this. I got this at the last minute today. I just want to make sure it's in the right format. If he says, okay, then my vote is yes.
Yes, I have looked at it and I have approved it, and actually I have written it.
Thank you. Yes.
Harold,
Thank you.
sorry to keep you waiting. How do you vote?
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Okay, I don't know if I can't see if there are any citizens present.
One is present.
Have to help me out there. We do have a citizen who has sent a letter in a double sealed envelope that comes under the heading of comments from citizens. It's from Barry Weinschenker, and none of us knows what it says because he instructed Laura to read it and not to open it until now. So, Laura, the floor is yours.
Okay, just so for Mr. Weinschenker's, at his request, the envelope is sealed. Barry Weinschenker lives at 12009 Sherlock Court. And he writes, Prospect City Council, I've always considered loyalty, be it to country, faith, family, or others, to be a measure of a person's character. How one treats others who have extended them a helping hand in their time of need shows me who I can trust. Thus, it is with sadness I write this letter. Mr. Mayor, many of us supported you in your hour of need. None more so than 2 council members who held firm when your position was in peril. Need I remind you that the city council required 4 votes to remove you from office? They had 3 firm votes plus 1 reluctant abstention. If either of the 2 remaining council members, Frank Fulcher or Sandra Leonard, had joined that coalition, you would not be our mayor. You have repaid their loyalty by a backhanded move to eliminate at least one of them from the council by sending out an endorsement of 4 other members for council. The people you endorse may or may not be excellent council candidates. I can't judge. However, your actions reveal character flaws of spitefulness and a lack of loyalty. These are not what I expected from someone I strongly supported and called a friend. With sorrow, Barry Weinschenker.
That's the end of the meeting.
Do you want to speak? Mary?
Actually, Frank, I'm rather overcome.
Linda, okay. Lynn, sorry.
I don't trust myself to say anything further.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
I got a quick question before we adjourn. A lot of people have asked me about Halloween, trick or treating. There's nothing posted on our site, at least that I saw. Are we allowing it, disallowing it, or following any guidelines?
Harold,
You're too close to the mic,
you're
Harold.
totally breaking up.
Halloween, trick or treating.
There we go. Sounds better.
I have a lot of people, friends with kids, that want to know what's the Prospect stance on it. Allowing it, disallowing it. There's nothing on the website. Are we following CDC guidelines, or what are we doing? And if so, can we add it to the site?
I don't understand what you're saying.
I still don't understand you either. Oh, you want to know if there's trick or treating?
I've been asked by multiple people.
Well, I kind of think that's up to the parents of the children.
I agree.
Yeah, okay. Then the city is not taking a stand against it. Is that what you're saying, John?
Yes, I think that's up to Harold with his children and the other parents with their children as to what they think is good or not.
Absolutely. He just said they've checked the website for guidance and they have seen nothing, that it's either canceled or still allowed. So no big deal.
Should we be putting on the website something that says what the mayor just said?
I would support that.
It's a good idea. I'll do it tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
So there's a motion to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Right.
Well, Jefferson County, Metro may take a position against it.
Which is fine, but that doesn't mean we.
I'm not clear on whether you voted to adjourn or not.
No, we didn't vote. We do need to.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? You're adjourned.
Thank you.
Ciao. okey.